So there are some things to consider when you look at the Surface Pro for photography. First of all, their display itself. It's 1080p, it's IPS, so it's got fantastic color, it's got fantastic viewing angles, it's very sharp and contrasty. And so if you, if you take this out and you want to show your clients your portfolio, it's fantastic for that. They can have it in their hands and they can flip through your photos like an iPad or an Android tablet, for example. So they'll be familiar with that, and it's a fantastic application for that. Now it is, as you can see, it is a glossy display. So if you're going to be, sitting around for 1, 2, 3 hours editing photos, the glossy display, in my opinion, it's a distraction, and it makes the colors not as vibrant. It's not the most ideal situation. You really want a matte display if you're going to be sitting around editing photos for some time. Now, on a related note, it's the color reproduction. While it is very vibrant, it's very contrasty, it's not the best in terms of color reproduction. In the background, I have a Vaio Z, and that display there, it's matte and it's 1080p. But most importantly, it displays 98% of RGB. And once it's calibrated, then that's the most ideal situation that you want when you're editing photos. You want that color accuracy and precision. With the Surface Pro, I'm not sure what percent of RGB it displays, but it's not as close as the Vaio Z in my experience. Now, in terms of CPU and RAM, you're limited by the i5 and 4 gigs of RAM. At the moment, you can't get any other configuration. And if you look at competitors, for example, the Vaio Duo 11, you can get that with an i7 and 8 gigs of RAM if you wanted to. And so that's a major limitation here. If you're going to be batch processing a lot of photos, if you've got high resolution RAW files from, for example, a D800 produces massive files, and this is just going to choke with that. And on the other hand, if you're out in the field and you need if you need to do quick edits, this is perfectly fine for that. So the next thing to consider is the hardware itself. You're starting on the left-hand side. You can see that there's one USB 3.0 port. I would have preferred two, but I can understand why they went with one. A great thing about USB 3 is that you can connect USB 3 hard drives from here, and you can actually edit your photos directly from the hard drive. You don't have to bring your photos onto the Surface itself. The data connection is fast enough with a USB 3 hard drive. It's fantastic for that. You can archive your photos and you can work from them at the same time without messing around with transfers and so on. Now on the other side, a major limitation here is the micro SD slot. No cameras use micro SD slots, and so this is basically useless for you as a photographer. You're going to have to find another way to get your photos on here. If you're out in the field, for example, and you want to do some quick edits, this is useless for you. You need to carry a card reader or a USB cable that connects to your camera, and that's just that's something that you have to remember to carry, and it's easy to forget that sort of stuff. Now, on the other hand, it does have a mini display port, and that is fantastic because you can drive very high resolution monitors with that. You can adapt this to HDMI, VGA, and so on. Now, you do have to go out and buy them, but at the same time, this is probably the most flexible display output that's available on the market. The Surface Pro also uses a Wacom Digitizer pen, and so if you're looking for this type of interface, it's fantastic for that. Keep in mind that at the moment, their Windows 8 or Windows Surface does not support WinTap drivers, and so you can't use pressure sensitivity for some programs. For example, Photoshop, you can use it as a pointer and to draw things, for example, but it can't sense pressure at the moment. So the last hardware consideration is the hard drive. And in this case, it uses a 64 or 128 gigabyte SSD drive. The drive itself is extremely fast. On the other hand, the 64 or the 128 may not be large enough for you. It really depends on your situation and how you use your tablet in day-to-day use, but also in your photography business as well. For myself, it's a non-issue. I don't store my photos on here, aside from some personal stuff. For my working files, it's all backed up onto external hard drives, and I work directly from that. So, the hard drive itself, it's a non-issue in my case. Now, in terms of software, because this does run Windows 8 Pro, basically all of your desktop applications can work on here. And now, just keep in mind that it is an i5 with 4 gigs of RAM, so the performance may not be what you're used to on a desktop or a more powerful laptop. But having said that, you can run anything that you want on here, basically. Of course, it does have the modern UI and Windows 8 apps, and so you can run those types of applications as well. The only thing I would mention here is that the Windows 8 store is not as complete as Apple or Android, for example. And that's important because a lot of camera manufacturers nowadays have built-in Wi-Fi in their cameras. And those cameras connect to Android or Apple devices. And for the most part, they have not built Windows 8 equivalent of those programs. So if you have a Sony Nex, for example, then you're not going to be able to connect it with this. You'll need an Android tablet or other device to do that.